Well, I'm Peter Reinhart. Welcome back to Pizza Talk, and we have a very special episode today. I'm in North Carolina, where I always am in Charlotte, but we're in Chicago with Derrick, who's joining us from Paulie G's Logan Square. Derrick is a rising star in the pizza world on the U.S. pizza team. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about what Paulie G's and Derrick have in common and how they get together. So Derrick, welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. I don't know about rising star, but that's quite a compliment. I'll take it.
You are. You're what did it say? Rising with a what is it in Billboard? You know, rising with a bullet or something like that.
Yeah.
And, although I hate to use that word these days. Anyway, let's take a few minutes before we start making some pizzas, which I can't wait to dive into, because you're going to show us today your championship, your U.S. championship pizza, which is a Detroit-style square pizza, right? That you kind of created and have been riding into international competitions with. But before we get to that, tell us a little bit of the backstory of how you and Paulie G got together and how Paulie G's in Chicago came to be.
Sure, absolutely. So, I fell in love with pizza a long time ago, like everyone does as a kid, right? Probably when I was 5 or 6, just glorifying this awesome food that community gets to share. For me, the biggest memory for pizza always was there was a program called Book It with Pizza Hut. And, that program kind of changed my life. Like, my parents were immigrants from another country. We rarely went out to eat because we were always saving money. But at school, if I read enough books and answered enough quizzes properly about these books, I would get these tickets that would earn us a free personal pan pizza at Pizza Hut. So, I'd save up like 6 or 7 of these things and then be able to take the whole family out to eat. And that was my first time really getting to treat my family out. And I was probably about 10 or 11 at the time. So pizza had a significant impact. Fast forward all the way into post-college, after I was working, there was a night that my wife was moving out of her space, starting her own business. And, I was helping her move all her stuff into her new office. And neither of us wanted to cook dinner that night. So we went out to a place locally in the suburbs near our house and had, Neapolitan pizza made from scratch in front of us at, what they call a pizza bar now, where you can see them pull the dough out, stretch it, hand stretch it, top it, put it in the wood-fired oven, and within 5 minutes, this like beautiful blistering crust that's crispy but light on the inside came out. And it just kind of blew my mind how smooth and how quick this process was. So I started going down this.
Not your typical Pizza Hut pizza there.
No.
Right.
I went down this rabbit hole of just starting to learn about pizza as much as I could. So, watching YouTube videos of Tony Gimangiani, Roberto, going down the, what's the website? pizzamakingforum.com.
Right,
and just learning as much as I could. And then at some point I started trying to make my own pizza. And so on the weekends, a couple high school buddies of mine got together and we started making pizza because we wanted to turn it into a business. We wanted to get better at making pizza, but we wanted to turn it into some type of small business. And so we built a wood-fired oven on the back of a trailer and started taking it to local farmers markets on the weekends. So every Wednesday was a prep night. We would come home from work, get together at a kitchen and just prep everything out, get 100 dough balls ready, chop the cheese up. And then every Saturday would be farmers market. And then we would do some private events between there. So after a year of this, I decided this is the highlight of my week. This is what I love to do, making pizza. But even more importantly, having these guests come back week after week, buying more pizza. Some guests were buying 7 pizzas and freezing them because they love them so much. So they could eat one every day for the whole week. And so I decided this is something I want to pursue. So the goal at that point was to just open up like a small little shop, maybe like 20, 30 seats, single wood-fired oven, and just hopefully grow little by little. But during that time, I also reached out to 3 mentors, folks that made a life change. So, I wanted someone that kind of reflected me. So someone that did not start in the restaurant business and made a life change partway through. And someone that wasn't a diehard Italian. Nothing against Italians, but I've met a few Italians that firmly believe that unless you're Italian, you can't make good pizza. And having a mentor like that, I think, would just be too difficult to work with. And so those were the 2 main criteria. And then one of those 3 mentors I reached out to was Paulie. Paulie spent a lot of time kind of emailing, talking to me, I visited him in New York. He came to visit me in Chicago. And eventually we decided, let's work together. Let's have this partnership / mentorship. And so I opened up a Paulie
great
Juice.
choice, because he's talking about a guy who made a career change, and it wasn't
Absolutely.
just early in life like you. But what were you doing before? What track were you on before you realized your passion was in pizza?
So I'm a black sheep of the family. I'm a med school dropout after 2 years. And then I got my master's in healthcare administration, and I was working in a state hospital for about 5 years before I switched over to healthcare consulting for academic medical centers. And that area was focused all on cost efficiency and quality of different operational standards, all the new technology coming into medicine, and whether it had a significant impact to quality or not. And so I worked in consulting probably for about 3-4 years before I made the change completely over to pizza. During that time when I was consulting, we like to refer to it as hybrid entrepreneurism, right? So every day was, I'm doing my 9 to 5, more than that. And then every Wednesday and Saturday, I'm doing my passion project and trying to grow it into business.
It's funny because we hear similar stories from a lot of people. Certainly people who have entered the pizza world have, sort of the unexpected realization of how much they love pizza and what it can mean for them. And imagine, changing tracks, whether it's a lawyer or an IT guy or a medical guy. It's quite a step. It's a brave step, I think, to take, because number one, you're dealing with the family pressure, right? As you said, you're suddenly like, what do you mean you're giving up being a doctor or, whatever. And so you got pressure now because you got to make this work as well. And also retain that love and passion for it. Because once it becomes a business, it's not just a hobby and a fun thing.
Oh, absolutely. The pressure is, people don't understand it, I think, until they sign the dotted line, right? I mean, it's one thing to help make money so you can support yourself and, potentially your investors. It's another thing to have 25 people that work for you that depend on you for their, day-to-day paycheck and making sure that they can afford rent and they can afford to eat. And so that's, like you said, it's the pressure of it all. It's crazy.
So you're in Chicago in Logan Square, which is kind of like on the northwest side, right, of town. Am I right?
Yeah, just west of the city.
Yeah, and so, but the restaurant is called now.
I think I lost you.
Huh? I'm sorry, you lost me there. A typical our Zoom challenges is that technology steps in sometimes.
Don't know if you lost me or if it was.
I see you're still frozen on my screen, but now there you are. You're back live.
Oh, here we go. We go.
Lest there be any doubt, this is we're recording live. Those of you who are watching are seeing something that's already been recorded, but we're happening in real time. So Derrick, how did you become Paulie Cheese? Did you open a restaurant first before partnering with Paulie, and then when did the Paulie moniker come on?
No, so I built a small business that was just the farmers markets and private catering, and like I said, we did that for about a year. And then after that, I had wanted to build out the restaurant. And so, but like I said, between then and during that time, I got to meet Paulie. And Paulie eventually had proposed that he wanted to work with me and open up a spot in Chicago. And so starting at that point, I kind of started looking for places and looking for venues that we could open up. That whole process took us about 2.5 years before I found a spot that I signed on and got the keys for.
Wow.
And so during that time, I actually, about a year in, I left my corporate job, mostly because, I'd been talking about it with my boss at the time, and she was very kind. She allowed me to stay on for a while, but at some point during one of our one-on-ones, she was just like, so when are you actually going to leave? Because, they're always planning for how to replace, how to keep moving. And I can't blame her. I'd been talking about it for a while.
Yeah.
So I did the right thing and I left the company, especially when I thought I was going to sign at that point. But that deal, like many, did not work out and it fell through. So then I was probably without a job for 1.5 years. During that time, I picked up some tutoring jobs, teaching kids, high school kids, how to do better on SAT and ACTs. But also I started working in a pizzeria nearby to better understand just the role of everything. I'd probably done about 3 weeks at Paulie's working through the different positions. So, I hosted, I served, I bussed, I'd washed dishes. I did everything because I had never been in the industry before. So I wanted to learn every position as much as possible.
Yeah. So you actually moved to New York for a while then, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it was not a long period of time, but I was out there. I was Airbnb-ing it and just, walking over and learning everything I could, adapting everything I could. And then at that point, like I said, while I was looking for a job, I had found another job in nearby at a pizzeria in a similar fashion. So a full service sit down pizzeria to better understand just kind of life on the line, working in the kitchen, things like that. And then, by that point already, Paulie and I had solidified our relationship, and it was just a matter of finding the right spot and moving forward with it.
When you spent that time in Brooklyn with Paulie, do you feel like you added repertoire skills that you didn't have before you went there? Did you pick up some new ideas and methods and techniques that you were able to apply?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the most beneficial is working in the day kitchen staff and having all the prep ready and things like that. I had never worked, we made like 100 doughs for an event, but we didn't do it to the level that Paulie's does. I didn't do like 6 buckets, 8 buckets, 10 buckets of dough at a time, or prepping all those things. And then learning how, their process of specific ingredients, things like their vegan sausage, their pickled pineapple, their chili oils, things like that. So a lot of that was just as much kitchen time as possible. So it was a lot of getting up at 8 a.m. and not leaving till about 10 p.m. and just absorbing everything I could. Taking notes, going home, studying the menu again, figuring it out.
But once you got set up back in Chicago and reopened as Paulie G's Logan Square, it's really still essentially your restaurant. I mean, you're running it. It's your show. How much of it are your ideas up there, and how much are sort of the shared Paulie G's ideas as part of your menu offerings?
Sure. So when we opened, we had probably about 65 to 70% of the menu was Paulie's menu. And so we pulled his greatest hits, used those things, and then introduced a few pies of my own. And then year by year, we've kind of reduced some of Paulie's menu, or taken the things that don't sell as well or don't do as well, and made it more our own and more to local taste, as well as just my staff, their creativity and what they bring forth as well. So it's, at this point, I'd probably say maybe about 30% of the menu is still from the original Paulie's, and the rest of it is kind of new stuff that we've incorporated, including the Detroit-inspired Logan Square pizzas.
Right, because you've added a whole different style of pizza than what it originally was. And so is he back in New York. Everyone is probably borrowing ideas from each other and learning from each other as you go. How long have you been open now in Chicago?
We just had our 4-year anniversary last week, Thursday. So
it goes fast, man. I feel like I just met you at like Pizza Expo, and that was like just about 4 years ago or something. You were just up and running. Paulie introduced me to you then, and he said, "Yeah, this is my guy in Chicago," and he said, "Keep your eye on him."
Time flies sometimes.
Amazing. And then all of a sudden you're into competitions, and so I want to, maybe you can talk us a little bit through the pie you're going to show us, and how how you came up with that, and what you have won with it already.
Yeah, competitions are a whole nother beast. They're super interesting. I think there's a lot of pizza maker skill because you're an unknown kitchen and unknown variables that you're trying to work around. But also, you don't know who your judges are going to be that day, and depending on your judge's taste, it's very subjective. It's almost like when you see a guest, right? A guest will try your pizza and say, "Oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever ate," and then the next table could be like, "This is the worst pizza I've ever had in my life." And there's so much. There's definitely an element of luck to it, tied to the high level of skill. My first competition.
I can tell you from the judging standpoint, I've been on that side of it. Is that depending on which pizza of the day that you're eating? Is it your first one, or is it your 25th one?
Oh, I can only imagine. Yeah,
the way you relate to it.
That's part of the challenge, right? And that's, as a judge, I don't envy the judges by any means. Like having to sit and eat through 25, 50 pizzas, even if it's small bites. Because when it tastes good, you want more bites, but you have another 50 bites coming in the next hour. So it's challenging. I have no doubt.
It's a challenge, but somebody's got to do it, and you're happy that you get to do it. But after the day's over, you go, I'm not sure if I could ever do this again.
Yeah, my first experience with competing was a little bit like that. I was out in Vegas. I prepped 3 months in advance. I went through my processes. I sharpened my knives. I really got my efficiency down so that I had everything the way I wanted to. Yeah. And it was a pizza it was a Detroit style square that featured Chinese cha sao sliced really thinly with what did I put on there again? It was like a 5 peppercorn sweet sauce that I put across, and I pickled the peppers, mini peppers, and turned them into little flowers.
Oh, wow.
It was beautiful.
What is chow? A Chinese style chow show? What was that? The word you used?
Cha sao. So cha su. It's like I used pork belly that time, so it's like a roasted pork basically, like a barbecue Chinese pork.
Okay.
And so I sliced it really thin, and the fat was meant to melt into the cheese as it like came out because while it was still hot, and then we torched it a little bit. I mean, it was a nice show. It was beautiful. The judges hated it. I was like bottom two. At that
they
point,
weren't ready for it.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I had a lot of guests that loved it, so I thought this is going to be great. This is super creative. And then when I came home, I was super dejected for the rest of the trip there after getting the results. I vowed never to compete again. But then 6 weeks later, there was a competition being held literally 20 minutes from my house at Leo Spazzari's school.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So many people that I had met there during the first competition that were so kind to me were competing. So I thought, you know what, let me go out there. There's a gluten-free category and I think it was traditional or maybe Neapolitan. I forgot what the other category was. But I thought, well, these guys are here. I need an excuse. Let me go there. I'm not going to put too much thought into this. We have a gluten-free dough I've been working on for a while. Let me just put some of my favorite ingredients on that I think would work okay and make it pretty. And then surprisingly, I took first place. So just goes to show, you can do all the prep in the world and there's always a luck element that you never know about.
Well, listen, before we run out of time on this segment, because we're going to come back in segment 2 and finish the pizza, but can we get it started right now and get it into the oven? We'll take a break.
Absolutely.
All right, fantastic. And now this is not the one that you originally entered, but this is the new one that you came up with that ended up winning the U.S. championship.
Yeah, I ended up winning a Midwest regional, and so it was in the gluten-free category specifically. I'm going to come over and just check our oven to make sure it's hot enough.
And you got a pretty good sized kitchen there. Nice space.
What's that?
Good. I say you got a nice sized kitchen there with some good space.
Thank you. This is our second renovation on our kitchen. We've improved it slowly over time because it was necessary. It's just with a kitchen we came in with, it was small, it was tight, it was functional. But as our operations grew and as COVID hit too, like we had to make some adjustments so that we can make it better. So it's been expensive, but every step has definitely made us a little bit better for it.
Well, it looks really efficient and nice and clean and shiny.
Yeah. So this is our dough that we're working with.
All right.
This is not a gluten-free dough today. This is one of our regular doughs. It's a 75% hydration dough. We use about 2% salt, 2% sugar, 1% yeast. During normal times when we're not in COVID and we have more demand, we usually end up using a little bit of sourdough starter as well. And let me introduce you to my main dough guy over here. This is Travis.
Hey.
I'm always a firm believer in surrounding myself with people that are better than me on my team wherever I can. Travis has so much more knowledge in bread and dough than me that I've ever had in my life. So, I developed the original recipe and the flavor just wasn't what I wanted to be. I asked him to put some effort into it and he ended up developing a sourdough add-in that made it amazing. We're not using sourdough right now in these guys. I'm just using the yeast, but the effect has still been pretty good.
When you say 1% yeast, is that a powdered yeast or a fresh yeast?
It's instant yeast.
Instant yeast, 1%.
Yep.
Instant. Okay.
1% instant yeast. And then I use a blend of flours. It's 90% high gluten, and then 10%, trying to remember what the other, it's not semolina, durum, that's right. We use 10% durum, and then we use about I got to double check my numbers, 1 or 2% diastatic malt also to give it a little bit of browning.
Nice. So, and I see that you've pre-baked it. So your method there is to use a pre-baked dough.
Yep, and I like par baking for a multitude of reasons, especially in high volume situations. I just realized I blocked you. Especially in high volume situations, when you par bake, you can control exactly the height you want it to be, and it gives it a little more rigidity so that you can top it a little bit more. My fear was, when we tested without par baking, we would always have a little bit of like too much deflation because of how much topping we had, and if it wasn't the optimal time during the dinner rush, we would have to lose some doughs because the quality wasn't as good.
Right, so, right.
At home, if I'm just cooking for myself, I won't do a par bake because I know I'll eat it whenever it comes out. It's fresh, it's perfect the way I want it to be. But in the restaurant, we par bake hundreds of these for a full service just to get it ready.
What is that pan? Is that a pardon me? Is that a metal pan, a steel pan of some sort?
This is a Lloyd pan. And it's an aluminum treated pan. It's a PTSK. So we've tested about 4 different types of pans here. We use a different pan for a gluten-free so that we can visually tell immediately whether it's a gluten-free dough. And so
Right.
those meals are protected so that there's no risk for our celiac, or less risk for our celiac guests.
Yeah.
Because, we are gluten friendly. We say it's gluten friendly, but since we work in a facility that has flour, I'm not comfortable saying gluten free.
Exactly, and it's basically it's buyer beware, because if you're super sensitive, you just got to be extra careful. So
Yeah,
you're putting cheese around the perimeter. It looks like. Is this what kind of cheese is that?
sure. This is a white cheddar.
Uh-huh.
And so we did some multiple tests using brick cheese, mozzarella, white cheddar, and we found, at least in our tests with our guests and my family, we like the white cheddar the best. And so when we went down the route of testing white cheddar, we found that, the younger the white cheddar is, the better for this particular application.
Uh-huh.
Older white cheddars just tend to leak too much oil and make it too greasy. And you have to use a lot more of it. Not to mention older white cheddar, the six month or like 1 year or 5 year age tend to be much more expensive. The flavor is great on those. The funk is great, but you can't get the edge that you want.
Can you just lift that up again so that we can see it as it's coming together? There you go. Right. Yeah. Keep the camera on it. That's awesome. So your perimeter cheese, and then what about the center?
Yep. The center, we're going to be using a whole milk mozzarella. That's dried.
Oh, so now we got two different cheeses in play.
We do. And so some of that mozzarella will always leak over the edge as well, but it's a different taste. We find that, when the guests get to that edge, they get that nice little umami salt bomb from the cheddar, which is what makes them fall in love with it, right? So you're eating the pizza, and that edge in that corner is really what they fight for, which is key.
So, and do you get with the cheddar? Do you get more of a crowning effect, more of a jagged sort of design?
Or sometimes. It depends on how much dough shrinkage there is. So, the longer we keep it in the fridge, the more shrinkage we get on the dough. So if it's like a 2-day dough, we're going to have to put more cheddar in, and the wall's a little bit more solid. If it's a fresher dough that we made that day, then we find that, you can get a little bit more whiskey with it. And also, one of the key differences is how old is the cheese that we've shredded. So if it's 1 to 2 days old, you're going to get less of that structural support, those wisps. The older it is and the more dehydrated it is, the longer it's been sitting in the fridge, it ends up creating better wisp patterns. And so we don't necessarily strive for that. We don't have that built into our operations. But, we do just try to do our best, use it up and see where it goes. And sometimes we get really nice wisps like Apollonias, and other times we don't.
Let's take a peek now again at the top so that we see it with, two kinds of cheese. And now it looks like pepperoni going on?
Yep. This is Etzo's Crisp and Curl Pepperoni.
But Etzo's really having big impact in the pizza community, isn't it?
Absolutely. The two types of pepperoni that we ever use is we use Etzo's, and then we use Hormel's Rosa Grande. Those are the two that we found from just a taste and texture standpoint, works perfectly for this pizza that we want, that crisping and curling effect that we get.
Exactly. That's good to know. We're seeing again, as we've talked to so many different pizza makers, and especially as this style is becoming more and more popular, that the choices that everybody makes about their ingredients is so critical and so thoughtful. I mean, everyone putting so much thought into, which brands and which styles are best. You mentioned earlier that you tested out brick cheese, I think, early on, but you decided to go with cheddar and mozzarella. And what was your take on using brick?
I like the brick cheese plenty, but I felt like the flavor wasn't where we wanted it to be. It may have been the brand that we used, right? My early tests are we just grab a bunch of different types of cheeses, test it, and see how it goes. So I don't know if it was the flavor or that particular brand, but we kept it pretty simple. And overall, in all our tests, white cheddar went out very quickly.
Interesting. I'm excited to hear that personally, because I've always been a big fan of cheddar, and I always felt that it was unfairly, we take it for granted. We think in America, and I think it is one of the great world cheeses. But of course, in Italy, they don't recognize it, so we have to champion it here. Because it's
really. Why do they not recognize it in Italy? That's interesting.
Well, they view it more as an American or English cheese, not an Italian cheese. So they would go with the mozzarella or fontina. But I'm just glad to see that cheddar is having its day in the sun.
So it's interesting because in Italy, so I competed in Italy after I got on the U.S. pizza team, and I was told not to put ricotta on my pizza. That ricotta is only for desserts. And so when I got there and landed, I had to design two whole new, totally different pizzas to try. which also, like, I did okay, not as well as I would have liked, but, you know, it's a challenge out there for sure. It's different judges, different tasting profiles, trying to figure out how to like feed them and how to make them happy is tough.
Well, I see you're starting to put on, is that your signature proprietary bacon confit or bacon marmalade?
Yeah, we call it bacon jam. We take, at the base level recipe, we take bacon and we cook it down really slow over a certain amount of time. Take out some of that fat, add some onions, and then a variety of spices. And then we blend it all together until we get this nice textured bacon.
Beautiful. Wow. And I'm sure it's got phenomenal flavor.
Yeah, it adds a little sweetness. We do have some brown sugar in there, without going too much farther than telling the whole recipe. But, if anyone ever wants to figure it out.
This is your signature item. You got to keep that a secret, yeah.
Every one of my signature items starts with a Google search. You go through Google, you find every recipe, you test them all, and you decide what works, what doesn't, and start combining and playing.
I can tell you right now, there's like 20 people watching saying, I make the same damn thing myself. But they all have their own little twist.
Oh, for sure. And it's just, how do you put your personal spin on it?
We're going to take a break here. Is there anything else going on before it goes into the oven?
No, this is everything before it goes in the oven.
Why don't you go ahead and pop it in the oven? We'll take a little break here. When we come back on the next segment, we'll see what it looks like coming out and how you finish it off and serve it as we continue with Derrick Tung at Paulie G's in Logan Square in Chicago. Derrick, this has been great so far. I'm getting pretty hungry. Can't wait to see it pop out of the oven. We'll see you on the next segment.
Thank you.
Join us on the next round on Pizza Talk. We're back on Pizza Talk with Derrick Tung, and we're at Paulie G's Logan Square. Derrick showed us how to get the pizza to the oven. In the first part, he's about to pull it from the oven, so let's take a look, see what you got. All right.
So let me pull this phone over so you can see it a little bit better.
And Derrick, just for information purposes, it's gorgeous. What size pan is that, and how much dough went into that pan?
Sure, that's an 8x10 pan, and we use 300 grams of dough for this. And so our gluten-frees use a little bit more. We use 400 grams of dough for the gluten-free, but this one is 300 grams.
So it's about approximately 10 ounces of dough for those who think like me in ounces. So all right, so the pizza's got this gorgeous caramelized cheese. It's the mozzarella in the center, the cheddar around the edges. The Ezzo pepperoni have cupped up really nicely, and then the bacon jam is just like flavor bursts all throughout.
It is. The bacon jam is just like little bites. And so what I'm always looking for, what my staff is looking for, is if we look in that corner, you can see that cheese is starting to caramelize and starting to turn slightly dark brown.
Yeah.
And so you can see some of those wisps. Those wisps typically won't survive the process unless you're super gentle using like a fish turner. But in our fast pace, when we're doing them quickly, those won't survive. However, those corners will survive. And when that comes out, we should be able to see a really nice golden shell around them.
Those wisps usually survive on a little dish that I can tap into throughout the day.
That's true. That's true. Keeping it delicious for sure.
Remember at the barbecue places where they sell you the burnt edges, and
oh God. And now they sell burnt ends, right? I mean, why would you not sell those burnt ends? Those are the best pieces.
That's right. All right. So before you put anything else on it, do you take it out of the pan, or do you finish the topping in the pan?
So we usually let it sit for about a minute or so before we take it out of the pan. This way it gives the oils time to redistribute back into the dough appropriately, as well as gives the cheese a little bit of time to separate from the walls. So we don't pull it immediately. It allows it to cool a little bit, and it makes it easier to work with from the pan perspective. So.
Gotcha.
But, we're at a point where we can probably start loosening it. This is one of my favorite spatulas, just because you're looking for something really long, so you can support pulling it out all the way. If your pan is seasoned right, this thing will come right out after you just kind of loosen up the cheeses. So we'll give it a test and see how this one looks today.
Wait, I know you par-baked the dough first, and so did you have a fair amount of oil in the pan when you baked it? Oh, look at that edge. Look at that frico. So you can see some of that cheddar that you rimmed it with all kind of melted down the sides.
Yep.
So basically, we're getting a grilled cheese
That's
sandwich.
One of the other nice things about par-bake, right? Because you get a little bit of that shrinkage, you get a full wall of cheese with this, sometimes a little bit underneath as well.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're not par baking, if you look at like a Buddy's pizza, it's delicious, but it's only about a third to maybe half at most of the cheese leaking down the sides. And so, some differences in par baking versus not. I think there's great ways to do them both. My preference is just the par bake for what we do.
That's cool. And that's a great point about the cheese can go all the way down that way.
Yeah, and you can see, I was lucky this time. The cheese whips kind of survived. But the edge that you go in on the back end, there's no wisps. Like once you go in on that back end, there's no more wisps. So
beautiful, gorgeous. I love the color.
I got this hot pan out of the way. Dump some oil out.
So, wait, when you have a sec there, could you just hold up so we can see the undercrust also and see what kind of color you got on the bottom?
Absolutely. This will be easier if I flip the camera. Give me 1 sec.
Oh, nice. Nice perspective there. Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Lots of really rich caramel, dark caramel, and then in the center a little lighter. Gorgeous. I can almost anticipate what that's going to sound like when you bite into it.
So we oil the pan on the par bake. We do not re-oil it on the second bake because we find that our pans already have enough buildup that it's fine. And we also, the cheese itself releases enough oil that it shouldn't be an issue at that point.
Gotcha.
Favorite weapon, my zombie killer.
Beautiful, yeah. Go to battle with that knife. So if somebody orders this pizza, what's the ticket price out the window? And is that how you typically serve it in 6 slices, 6 squares?
We do. So the ticket slice out the window, this runs $19 for this particular pizza. And then we serve it in 6 mostly because our wood-fired are sold in 6 as well. And so the idea is that every one of our pizzas is meant to be a personal meal. With this one, you got to try a little bit harder. But, any pizza can be a personal pizza if you try hard enough.
Well, I know a few people who could make that a personal pizza. You can easily handle that whole thing. You mentioned earlier that you're selling slices too. Do you ever sell the squares as an individual portion, a slice?
We haven't yet. One of the reasons we sell slices is because I like the fact that we can do a fast reheat. So we're using little mini Breville ovens, the Pizzaiolos.
Oh, yeah.
450 and 650 on top. It's literally a 45-second reheat. And I think everyone on my staff even prefers the reheated pizza because you get that extra crispy bottom layer.
Yeah. It is kind of a secret that a lot of people, have discovered is that the reheat on a slice can make it even better. Yeah.
It's so interesting because everyone out there, still believes I want the fresh pizza. I want the one that just came out. Honestly, I prefer the reheat on a New York slice every single time. We're thinking about doing Sicilians maybe in the window at some point, but we haven't done testing on this and what an actual reheat will do. If we did do it, we'd probably do larger pans so it'd be more efficient.
Gotcha. All right. So we've got our the pizza's out of the pan. It's been cut, but it's not quite ready to serve. There's a couple more touches still to come.
Yeah, just a little bit more touches to finish it out. And so, like I said, I designed this pizza really kind of on a whim with the idea that I wanted something that was visually appealing as well as, tasting good overall. And so it was a lot of just my favorite ingredients. But in the end, when we finished with the topping, I wanted some contrasting colors.
Yes.
So what we added there was a 7-Eleven tomato sauce from Stanislaus, a California tomato.
Uh-huh.
Even though most of our ingredients are wood-fired pizzas, a lot of them are imported from Italy. For our Detroits, we try to source within the U.S., if not Midwest, as much as possible.
Right.
So what we got here is just some ricotta. We don't whip it or anything. We take it straight out of the container.
Just dollop it on.
Small dollops for some nice visual appeal and also a cooling effect.
Nice. So you just take it straight. You don't add salt. You don't add any spices or herbs or anything. Just straight ricotta. Straight ricotta, yep.
I mean, in some of our specialty pizzas, we've definitely done some fun stuff like spinach-infused ricotta, other types of things. In this one, like I said, I wanted just a pure look for it. And so straight ricotta. We've tested a lot of different ricottas. At some point, I think we're going to change over to some of the Galvani ricottas, but we're still in the middle of that process before COVID hit, so we're still playing with it.
What do you call this pizza on the menu?
It's called the U.S. Pizza Cup winner. For lack of creativity or a better name. But
lest there be any doubt, but I'm going to order.
Originally, so at the restaurant here, we always have 3 rotating pizzas. Two square pizzas. One's always going to be a veggie/vegan pizza, and one's always going to have a meat pizza. And then we do a rotating wood fire. This was a rotating pizza because after I won, I said, let's introduce it to the crowds. Let's see what people think. After the first month, though, I had so many guests tell me this is the best thing they've tried, and they'll never come back if I take it off the menus and that. Yeah. So I broke my own rule of adding this pizza to the menu on a permanent basis.
So it lives now, and
it's served us well. I mean, it's become always a top 3 seller within our monthly sales. So it's doing pretty well overall.
Well, I can see why. Since it's been so successful for you, and you're part of a larger family of sort of the Paulie G's family, is he introducing the same pizza at any of his locations?
No, he's not. That's part of fun. Paulie doesn't know my bacon jam recipe. He's asked for it a few times, and I haven't quite shared yet. But we may get there.
You've got one of the more generous and flexible partnerships of in terms of franchising or pizzas. You're not really a franchise, are you? Technically,
Technically, we're a franchise. So from a legal standpoint, we're a franchise. But from an autonomy standpoint, we have so much autonomy. Each one of us is doing a little bit of our own styles, a little bit of our own ingredients, our own spin on things. So there's good and bad to all of it. I mean, there's something to be said for opening a McDonald's franchise and having a perfect formula every time, right? Yeah. But also, if you open a franchise, you're a McDonald's. There's no doubt that you have to follow the exact cheeseburger recipe all the way through. Right. Whereas we have the room to play, which gives myself and my employees a chance to be creative and play with things. Which is nice. I've got Tony over here who's going to be leading us on brunch pretty soon as we open up. Brunch is something that Paulie's never done that we're pursuing. He's helping out with bread baking. We've been doing shokupan. I've got Yvonne over here who's been focusing on our vegan shokupans and doing things like green tea matcha rolls inside our shokupan Japanese breads.
What is a shokupan?
So shokupan is like the Japanese equivalent of brioche. But instead of using a standard process, the first thing they do is they gelatinize by using boiling hot water with the flour in the proportion of 1 to 5, right? And what that does is it creates a super soft dough and ultimately a bread that lasts longer without refrigeration.
This is a very similar trick to what the people that are making milk breads do, where they put the gelatinized flour water into the dough and it gives you that soft pillow-like texture. See, what did you just squeeze? Some hot honey or regular honey on there?
That's hot honey.
All right, Mike.
It's hot honey on everything that we can.
So we had Mike on, and he told us a little bit about the story. So Mike and Paulie's have this great relationship, it seems like. And you guys, in a sense, helped to launch Mike's to the national stage.
Absolutely. Mike, I think, was working for Paulie for a long time. Yeah. And then he, brought in his condiment because it's something that he grew up with and wanted to enjoy on a more regular basis. And it caught on like wildfire, and he's been growing the company ever since. And I gotta be honest, it's an amazing condiment. Yeah, I use it on ribs. I've used it in fried rice. It's so good. And he, I think just yesterday, he released that he did an extra spicy hot honey now available.
Hey, now are you walking with the pizza? Is it in your hands right now?
I am. I'm just trying to get
now that we've got everything on it, it's ready to serve, right? So can we get a real quick close up of it so we can see it with the honey shine and the contrasting of colors and flavors? I suppose that's like a chiffonade of basil on there.
It is.
So it's beautiful how you've also honored the presentation side as well as the flavor and textural side.
I was gonna say, in today's age, I mean, Instagram eats first for a lot of places. So if it's not beautiful, you're not gonna get social media to move behind it. You're not gonna get eyes on it. And I've always been a firm believer that you eat first with your eyes. I mean, I'll eat anything even if it looks terrible just to try it. But if it doesn't look delicious, you've lost half the battle already.
Well, I can tell you that at my culinary students at Johnson & Wales, the first thing that they learn and the thing they never forget is that phrase, "You eat first with your eyes." When I want to kind of remind them, I just say the first word of it, and they complete that sentence. And you can see why. Look at how how could you not want to take a bite of that? It's unbelievable. Would it be possible for you to hold up one square and give us a little sort of a cross section shot of the structure?
Absolutely.
Oh my God. Yeah. So, that's perfect. That is unbelievable. No wonder that this won U.S. championship. Is your plan to take it, or are you going to be competing with this on the? I know the World Championships got postponed in Italy this year, but are you going to take it to Italy?
So I went to Italy last year, and I did a 3-meat pizza that was based on all local meats. And then for the gluten-free division, I ended up doing a black kale, a local Italian black kale pizza with fried garlic chips, along with like a fried black kale crumble on top. Both did very mediocrely in Italy. So I think
those things are out of our control. But what this year's runner-up is next year's grand champion. You just never know.
That's true. That's true.
They're catching up. Also, Italy's been very influenced by what's going on here, I think, from what I can tell. And they've opened up to the entire American influence. And of course, the American influence is just a global influence that we consolidate here. Look at all the different concepts that you brought into your pizzas, with the Asian influences, the Italian influences, the Wisconsin influences.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, food has become more globalized than ever, I feel like. Especially, you can source almost everything from anywhere, which is crazy to think about. Now it just becomes a matter of how do you utilize the ingredient, how do you highlight freshness, and how do you do justice to it. Yeah. My competition days, I always toy with it. I always think that my competition days are over, but there's always a little itch that wants to go back and compete a little bit more. Uh-huh. A lot of my staff, I think, are interested in the idea of competition too. So if anything, I may be sponsoring them or having them compete on behalf of Paulie G's. Yeah. I've done 2 competitions in the U.S. and then the full Italian competition out there, and it was a fun time. It was amazing, but for me, I think the greatest joy isn't winning a competition or doing well there. The greatest joy really is, seeing our regulars, spending time with them, watching the families grow up. And so I'm much more focused, well, especially now, much more focused on the restaurant and getting it so that we can create an experience, or in the future, more experiences that are just a part of everyone's daily lives, like just approachable, good food.
Well, I think it's also great that you've got a team of people there that you can now go from being the mentee to being the mentor and groom them to win competitions. And all those great ideas that they come up with can end up on the menu at the restaurant as well.
Oh, I don't even know if it's a mentor-mentee relationship. I feel like I definitely learn a lot from each of them, allowing them to pursue kind of what they're trying to figure out and how they want to tweak things. I mean, there's a lot of misses, but, as long as we learn from every single miss that we have, we continue to move forward. So, I've got a guy that loves giardiniera, and he's just making all sorts of different types of innovative giardiniera. Yeah. And it's great to have people like that on the team, and it's great to give them some freedom to play. And someday, I know some of these guys aren't going to, they're not here permanently. So it's, as much as I can learn from them, I try to teach back to them too. And they've made my life easier. From day one, I used to spend 14, 15 hours at the restaurant, 5 to 6 days a week. And now I've got a strong enough team that I can opt to come in for like 5 or 6 hours, and I know that everything's going to be set. Little mistakes will get taken care of. And, I'm not as essential as I used to be. I can focus on the customer experience more now.
I have 2 questions before we run out of time and we have to leave you. And first question is, what's going to happen to that pizza that you just showed us? Who's going to eat that? Are you going to share that with your team, or are you going to sell it, or what? Or can you take a bite and vicariously let all of our viewers kind of enjoy it with you or with one of your teammates?
I can definitely take a bite. I'll see if the team wants any. Most of the team here have worked here long enough that they're more excited about other people's pizzas than our own, which is absolutely fair, because honestly, I get more excited about other people's pizza, especially when I see innovative, creative things going on than our own now too.
Of course.
So I'll take a bite of this for sure. What was the second question? Did I miss the second
I wish
question?
you could pass it through the screen, but obviously we can't. But we're going to hope that people will make it, and we're going to try to feature. We're going to be working on a book, Pizza Quest book, and a Pizza Talk book, and we're going to feature pizzas that are shown here on the show. So again, can you describe, because we're not quite getting the sound, can you describe what that sound is when you bite into that crust?
Yeah. So absolutely, the bottom has a little bit of crisp and a little resistance, and it goes into a nice soft center, which ends up being super tender all the way through. We use a tomato sauce as room temperature because the pizza warms it up a little bit,
Yeah.
And you can bite straight in immediately from the oven because there's no scalding cheese, right? The tomato sauce and the ricotta protects the top of your mouth.
Sweet. That's really nice. Yeah.
And then I get like the bacon jam sweetness, and then the Mike's Hot Honey kick finally comes in at the very end just to kind of round it out.
I can't get over that cheese crisp around the edge that, you could almost like shave that off and sell it by the bag and have a whole side business of.
Apollonia is the king of cheese edges. His stuff, Justin, I don't even know how he does it, honestly.
Well, we have an interview with Justin, and he shows us his method. There's a lot of similarities technique-wise, and yet you each have your own twists and tweaks on it. Equally beautiful stuff. One final question, though, that I do want to ask you is, in light of everything that we're dealing with COVID and the pivoting that everyone's doing, where do you see it all going for you? I mean, let's say that things return to some form of normalcy where dine-in restaurants can open again. Do you think that you're going to actually go back to that model, or do you have any ideas yet?
I think the goal is to get back to that model eventually, but I do personally think we're probably about 6 months off of that, right? I mean, yesterday they announced that they finished a human trial for 30 people on a vaccine that showed significant resistance now to COVID. So
a friend of mine's in that trial, by the way. I just found out today. A friend of mine went into that trial. Yeah.
What a small world. So now the next trial is a 3,000 person trial. So if that does well, I'm super excited that maybe we'll get back faster. Ultimately the goal is to get back to full dining service. But with this New York style, people have really loved it. And it's the dough that, have you met Andrew from Paulie's team? He runs the Paulie G Slice Shop.
No, we haven't met Andrew.
Okay. I believe he's the one that developed the dough recipe. He shared it with us. We're using it in COVID times. Let me flip this around so you can, actually I'll go outside and you can see what's going on with us. We're at a point where my staff aren't comfortable with having people come in. Yeah. So we took out one of our windows and it slides open. And then we put all our display New York pizzas right here.
Nice.
And so, the key for us now is we've been out of the game for probably about 2.5 months when COVID hit. And it only takes, 21 days to develop a habit, right, for your average consumer, which means that they've forgotten about us in some fashion. Yeah. And so we're rebuilding. The last 4 weeks I've been rebuilding, trying to become relevant again and getting people to enjoy slices because we don't want people coming into our restaurant and potentially infecting some of our staff.
Right.
And so, we're doing pickup we're doing pickup only. We're starting delivery probably at the end of this week. But the slices have been kind of there to help us try to stay afloat on water while we're using the government PPP loan as well. Our store is not different than a lot of restaurants, though. Every restaurant, every individual in the world right now is having some type of struggle with what's going on. And so just trying to figure out how we survive and maybe even try to thrive in this environment is the challenge.
Yeah. Well, I've been really impressed with the resiliency of the pizza community. Maybe of any sector of the restaurant business, of being able to really, pivot and the limberness of it, to be able to adjust and to stay alive, stay viable, and find ways to. And some people have told us that they may not go back to dine in. They're having fun with this new approach, and it's financially working out. So, but whatever it takes, that's the big thing in the community, the culinary community, is whatever it takes to get through today. And so, Derrick, thank you so much for spending so much time with us, sharing with us your, championship pizza, which is now, I've got to run into my kitchen now and start working on one, I'm really hungry. And congratulations on all your success. Thank your team for us for also, the work that they're doing and for helping to bring this episode to all of our viewers. And for all of you who are watching, keep coming back to Pizza Talk. We're meeting great people like Derrick, and we're going to keep showcasing the things that they're doing. We're celebrating not only pizza makers, but artisans of all types and growers, farmers, our friends at at the Napoli Tomatoes, for instance, one of our sponsors at Forno Bravo Ovens, who have helped really make this all possible, and anybody that's in the game. We're all in this together, and so we thank all of you for being part of this. We thank you, Derrick, and we'll see you either in Atlantic City if the Northeast event happens, or at Vegas, or back on a virtual platform. Whatever happens first, I know we'll all be there. And thanks for being part of this large community.
Sounds good. Hey, Peter, are those shirts purchasable? Can I buy one of those?
We had a few made way back at the beginning. I think this may be the last one in existence. But thank you for asking. No, we got to bring them out. You're right. I love these shirts, and if you want one, we'll start to maybe get another production run going on those and get them out there.
I look forward to it. Sounds good. Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
By the way, I love that mask you were wearing today. That's pretty cool.
I've got so many pizza masks now. It's crazy. I have masks for my lifetime.
Me of those, was it from the Ninja Turtles? Is that a Ninja Turtle mask?
No, it's a Ninja Turtle mask. Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, thank you so much. Congratulations. And we'll see you all on the next episode of Pizza Talk. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.